Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a whole new pod, the podcast about
peanut butter.
Fucking whatever this movie was. I'm your host, Lucas Melby.
And I'm Jacob Telejohn.
Back for our monthly episode, bringing in the month of May, the birthday month of both me and Jacob.
Yeah, your birthday is exactly 1 week away.
At the time of our recording, but by the time this episode was probably released, it'll probably be post both of our birthdays.
My birthday is May 1st. Lucas is May 2nd.
I learned that my coworker's birthday is May 3rd, and I've worked with her for a couple of years now, and I'm like, I feel like I should know that it was May 3rd, but I guess I didn't.
1, 2, 3.
Who's
May
always
4th
she takes her birthday off, and I'm like,
oh, okay.
Everybody I work with takes their birthdays off, and I'm like, come on, you guys are like 40 years old.
Yeah, mine's next Wednesday. I do not have next Wednesday off.
Well, yeah, especially when it's in the middle of the week. It's like, what are we fucking doing?
Not as fun.
Not as fun at all. Jacob, he's still hanging in there, everybody. But he missed both like the holiest days for Lucas Melby of the year, which seemed to mostly overlap with the holiest days of the Catholic Church, which is Easter. Where Jacob didn't go to Anime Detour and he didn't go to WrestleMania any of the nights. Well, technically, I only went to WrestleMania one night. Our friend group went to Sam's house. And for those who are maybe new listeners,
Lucas actually has his Anime Detour shirt on today.
They don't care about that. They care about Sam Blaze.
Oh, Sam.
And if you're a newer listener to the show, maybe you haven't listened to our Sam episodes.
You don't know who Sam is.
I don't know, probably the first 50 or so movies that we did. But as you maybe know, if you have listened to the Johnny Capahala Back on Board episode, is that he talks a lot. So after the first night, because WrestleMania has been 2 nights for the last few years, after night 1, I was just like, I'm going to stay up. Because Sam just talks. I mean, you know, he's got a kid. He doesn't maybe have a ton of social contact. Not that I necessarily do either, but I'm just like, I just want to just settle down, Sam. Take some fucking Ritalin.
Just relax.
Or something.
Just woosah, if you will.
I don't think his ADHD is well managed anymore. I don't know. This is the opening banter. Just let me tell you, Jacob, I am relieved.
Wow. That I haven't been in your life?
No. Well, yes. That's every morning I wake up and look around and see, is Jacob Telejohn around? All right, good. We're in the clear. No. I have finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Congratulations.
For those not in the know, the second part of the remake of the Final Fantasy VII, the 1997 PS1 game trilogy, and I achieved the Platinum Trophy.
Well, that's
pretty
impressive.
This is a segment where I'll just give a little bit of my personal life, which will show why we don't normally talk about our personal life on this show, because it'll both make you feel very sad. Just sad. Mostly sad. So, for those who don't know about what trophies are, or achievements in video games, it's kind of a meta level that exists on top of video games where you achieve certain challenges within a game, and that, in the case of PlayStation games, earns you a trophy. And games have bronze trophies, silver trophies, and gold trophies. And if you get all the trophies in the game by doing a variety of challenges, you get the Platinum Trophy.
Ooh.
And there's a lot to do in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, including some extremely tough and extreme challenges that are essentially boss gauntlets where you have a number of fights in a row. The hardest ones are 10 fights in a row.
Wow.
Very small wiggle room of error for you to achieve victory. And this mostly is probably unmanaged, poorly managed anxiety, but having these challenges that I knew about was hanging over my head and was stressing me out to unhealthy degrees. I was literally, no joke, I was losing sleep at night because I'm like, will I be able to do these challenges? It was like, you know, knowing you have to do homework Sunday night and it's like Friday night or whatever, except just like always hanging over me. Why? I can't tell you because I'm an obsessive, anxious person, but I was able to successfully do it. But for context, so the hardest challenge, my completion time for it in game time.
Does it have like the percentages of how many people have done this stuff too?
Yes, now it's like less than 1.
Wow.
Unless it's changed. But my full game time was like 23 minutes. That was fully beating the challenge of that one individual challenge. So if I died on like round 9 or round 10, then I have to do everything up to it again.
Wow.
Ultimately, it only took me like an hour, 90 minutes or whatever to do that
Okay.
one and my first real day of playing it. And then I'm just like, oh, I can enjoy video
Breathe.
games again.
Yeah.
And by enjoy video games, now I get to grind out a battle pass in Overwatch because video games aren't about being fun. It's about stressing you out,
Grinding.
working.
You gotta get it done before this certain time, or you'll never get any of the rewards.
Yep, FOMO forever.
That's I buy the Fortnite battle pass, and I haven't even been playing it as much as I was. So I gotta grind. I gotta get my Last Airbender stuff.
Oh, is that what's going on right now?
That's one of the themes right now.
Get my V-Bucks.
You have to. They're gonna have a Star Wars one starting May 3rd.
I've had Star Wars like 6 times by now.
May the 4th be with you is coming up, so
Fuck off.
I gotta get in on that.
I'm so mad at you. I was so relieved by beating that video game, which is a good game. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the quest for the platinum didn't like sour me on the game
Yeah.
too much. Because I was using guides and stuff online. It was still, I had good strategies in place. It just was executing on them. And I don't consider myself a very like high level gamer. So I was, we don't need to say how quite old we are with our new birthdays.
Yeah.
But, sometimes I wonder if I'm over the hill, or maybe there'll just be some stuff I'm not capable of doing anymore in video games.
Sad.
But today was not that day.
No.
But today was the day we watched The Peanut Butter Solution.
That's the movie we watched today. We've been going back and forth. Well, Lucas had a couple. We did. We're naturally we were going to do.
Yeah, don't put anything on me. I haven't picked anything.
No.
This is the first of our series. We put it out to the listeners if they wanted to suggest any movies. They did not. So as a fuck you to them, we watched The Peanut Butter Solution today based on Jacob's choice.
Well, okay. So are you saying that Good Burger wasn't your choice then last time?
No, these are, we went through our contractually, we talked about this.
Okay.
High School Musical, Dunstan
Yeah.
Checks, and Good Burger were all movies we talked about covering
That's
on
fair.
the podcast.
Yeah.
And then we're going to ping pong back, though towards the end of the episode, I'll lay out a couple movies that we maybe will just have to cover.
Oh.
But we'll start a series of Jacob and Lucas choices.
I like it.
The intention is not that we punish our listeners. Not that everybody, I think the majority of people wouldn't watch the movies that we do along with us. But I would definitely say do not watch this movie.
Watch the trailer.
Yes. So Jacob, tell us about how we came to The Peanut Butter Solution.
So one of my friends from work, Tom, shout out Tom, he's probably listening to this episode because I'll push it on him because he got me to know what this movie was. I'd kind of told him about, our podcast. He's known about it for years. I think he's listened to episodes on and off. But, I kind of told him, we're kind of coming to the end of our DCOM movies and stuff like that. We got to figure out some other movies to watch. And he's like, well, what about this movie, the Peanut Butter Solution? And I don't remember exactly how he came across it. It might have been from that 2 million viewed video that you
It does seem to have a bit of internet notoriety, an internet footprint. We can say, a much bigger podcast than us. Well, astronomically bigger podcast than us. How did this get made?
I don't.
How did this get made? Did an episode, I think, somewhat recently on this movie, and then
So it's kind of like a meme. I don't know. It's not a cult film. I don't know, or maybe it is. Is it?
I think so. Probably
culty?
falls within that. I think there was like a Blu-ray release of it somewhat recently, so there's at least gotta be a moderate fandom or understanding of something.
So Tom had mentioned it to me. Watch the trailer, watch some goofy clips from it, and it just kind of gave me DCOM kind of vibes. Some of those early ones. Like Mike Pillsbury out. There's like really weird.
That is can of worms.
Just some really weird, goofy stuff. In the trailer, in the movie, and like I said, I mean that's what we got. From the movie, but there were a lot of kind of just like riding around bikes for like 10 minutes, chasing. There were a lot of like
we're gonna get into the movie.
Yes.
Jacob. I don't know what Jacob's going on about right now. So we contextualized when we talked about Dunstan Checks In, as well as a little. Let me just say something. A glaring omission I had in the Good Burger episode was when I was talking about other Nickelodeon theatrical projects. I completely forgot about Rugrats. And obviously Rugrats both had at least 2 theatrical movies.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Wild
popular
Thornberries,
thing.
1, 2. They made one together.
Yeah, I don't know if that was like an actual movie theater movie or not. But we were talking about like live action stuff too.
Yeah.
So that was just one omission. But when we did the Dunce and Chicks episode, we talked about that being our oldest movie. But now this is our new oldest movie.
Yeah.
The Peanut Butter Solution is a 1985 Canadian film, specifically, I believe, French-Canadian movie.
And I mean, they don't necessarily speak it too much in the movie, but you can tell their accents are quite...
Yeah, I was trying to tell if...
difficult to understand several of the characters.
Yeah, if there was some like ADR where maybe some people just spoke in French and then got dubbed over, and maybe the same people spoke in French like on the set and then dubbed themselves over in English, but they're obviously difficult to understand with their accents. And this movie was within a series of, I think I saw 3 movies called Tales for All.
Yeah, that's how the movie kind of opens. It's showing, this Tales for All. Like you said, there's 3 of them. I don't really know what that means. Like I said, I don't know if that means that they were
I'd say this
funded.
isn't a tale for anyone, but certainly not for kids. There's some very
someone kind of grows
this.
A tale of sorts, you know.
And I do believe some of the earlier DCOMs would have actually been maybe co-productions with like Canadian companies. Obviously, a lot of them were filmed in Vancouver, Toronto, a lot of just general movies. But even like some shows like Goosebumps, not that was a Disney thing, but Goosebumps was a full Canadian production.
I didn't know it was Canadian.
Just some of your, I don't know if like Are You Afraid of the Dark, if that was the same thing, but still a little connective, making the case for us covering this on the show, which we won't necessarily have for all the movies we end up doing. But the one I have in mind, there's at least a little connection.
I'm ready for it.
But we're talking about the Peanut Butter Solution.
We are.
Maybe I would call it the Peanut Butter Final Solution.
Yikes.
Or more like the Peanut Butter Problem, because...
there is no solution.
And there's not a lot of peanut butter, but we'll get to that later. We get a nice preview of all the events that are going to happen.
Yeah, it kind of shows, stuff that's not in the trailer. I can't remember all the little bits and parts. You see like, the one thing that stood out the most to me was the paintbrushes made out of hair. And that was like, I don't know, that was the one thing that I kind of fixated on from this opening.
So what Jacob is referencing is this movie opens with title cards with
drawn stuff.
Yes, of the actors and who they're playing, including one that's the rabbit. Also disappointing is who that person actually is. But surrounding the text of the different people who are in and worked on the movie is drawings of basically the events of the movie. We'll see our main character, Michael. Well, I won't spoil it up front because that's basically all this movie has is its major plot beats. So it's a little confounding that they would just up front show them all here. But as I just mentioned, Michael is going to be our main character, and we are introduced to him along with his sister Susie. And through narration from Michael, we learn that Susie is kind of serving the role of his mother while his mother is away
in Australia.
We were kind of hung in suspense for a bit where we weren't sure if his mom was dead.
Yeah, they're like, mom went away.
And we also were aware
Michael,
from the trailer
eat your fruits.
That there were ghosts in this movie. So we were like, is Michael not going to realize his mom's dead, or is she seeing the ghost? And then we go up into an attic where we see the father, who we're not really sure what's his deal. His face is in his hands, and he's a struggling artist. I wasn't sure if Jacob was trying to say that Susie was just filling the role of the mom, or if she was actually supposed to be the mom.
No, she was filling the role because like there's a, in the very beginning, like Michael's eating like a breakfast, but like he won't eat a certain thing, and he's like, "This is healthy for you. This is exactly how mom would make it for you." Susie just
putting a bunch of stuff in a blender, including a raw egg. So I think it actually was gross stuff.
But then she goes up to, at some point, I think it was in the very beginning here, but she goes up to the dad who's upstairs in the attic painting, and is like, "Oh, can't do anything right, can't cook." I don't. It was just given. And
it just goes along, and it's just weird relationship that mostly made me feel uncomfortable. Because this, like, since Susie is filling the role of the mom, she apparently doesn't need to go to school, because it's not even like super clear. She might as well be the same age as Michael, but she just is always, doting around, making supper, wearing her mom's bathrobe. We'll then meet at some times, maybe like co-main character of the movie in a way, Connie. who primarily goes by Connie, who is a friend of Michael's, a little Asian boy. And he just is always popping into the house, it seems. I guess the dad later apologizes to Conrad, so I think he must be mean to him earlier on in the movie, but that's not immediately clear. But Conrad is there to get Michael for soccer practice, though we maybe don't see them go to soccer practice.
Yeah.
And then he tells him about a fire that occurred the night before.
And he's like, I was there. I was in the thick of it. I was under the fireman's hose. I was in it. Bodies dead everywhere. I don't know.
And sometimes he's a little hard to understand. There's a variety of accents in this movie, including Michael, where he sounds weird. The dad sometimes seems to have an accent. So I wasn't exactly clear on what Conrad was saying. And then basically what happens, though, is that there's this fire in kind of like an abandoned house where I believe Conrad says there were some winos or homeless people there that died. But then this is intercut with...
Michael has like a flashback of like him on the streets running into these winos or these two homeless people.
And giving them some money.
He gave them money, yeah.
And this is too early on in the movie where we weren't sure who was actually talking in the narration.
Yeah.
If it was Conrad still telling the story about who it was, and then it's Michael remembering who it was. Or Michael saying like, oh, I knew these people and I gave them money. But that's essentially what has happened here. And then they go to school, where the most important class we see them in for a while is art class with a teacher known simply as the Senor.
They're drawing a dog, his dog, that lives at the school with him in a broom closet.
And the Senor always wears some kind of overcoat, not maybe a smock or something.
Yeah.
And he's got wild, almost Albert Einstein style
goofy hair
and a beard. Yeah. And he talks in a heavy French accent. And is very against using imagination. Which
because Michael tries to draw the dog, but because he recently heard about this fire, he draws the dog in the flames, and the Senor is getting all upset. No imagination in my class.
Yeah, which obviously seems weird for an art teacher to be like that, but he's still...
Yeah, he's ripping up people's paint, drawings, and he's going to rip up Connie's, and Connie says, don't you do that, Senor. You do that and I'll never show up to your class again. And he doesn't. Yeah. No, he stops.
That's the power in charm and charisma.
Connie's got
Conrad. All. And the scene where we're seeing him, he's going around critiquing all of the kids' artwork. It's so drawn out before we even see Michael, where I'm like, is Michael even in this class? What is the point? And for a long time, this is the only teacher we really see at the school. So it's like, what is going on with this art teacher? And it goes places that even with the previews we got in the title cards, I could not fully predict what was going to happen.
It gets pretty wild.
Something I also couldn't predict necessarily was going to happen is after school, they go and check out the burned out house.
There's like kind of like a chute that it looks like they were using to like get junk out of the house, the garbage. Both Conrad and Michael try to climb up it. Conrad falls, can't get up it. Michael gets up to it, and he's about to go in, and I think Connie warns him, don't go in, da-da-da-da-da. Michael wants to see what's, I don't know.
There's some kind of egging on to be like, you're not going to do it. I am going to do it. And then Conrad like immediately falls. He's like, okay, hey, stop. Hey, like, no, man, stop.
But like Michael believes there's still survivors, I think, is the deal. I think they mentioned that.
So.
I don't know, but he goes in the house and we hear a loud scream, and then he just gets like, I don't know, he falls like aggressively down the chute, and he's tumbling and smacking his head, and pretty wild stunt double job there. So he's out. He's I mean speaking of the Ryan Gosling movie coming out here soon.
We weren't.
Oh.
What do you mean speaking of? You can't say speaking of. This isn't even a situation where
I'm talking about stunts.
Where Jacob is like, oh well, as we were saying earlier, and we didn't say it on the podcast. It was us. We have not talked about the Ryan Gosling.
Speaking of stunts.
All right. So then Conrad brings
this kid fell.
Conrad brings Michael back to his house in a grocery cart.
Yeah. Well, so at first he's kind of hidden behind Conrad, and he's like going there and he's talking to the sister, and she's like, he's not home, and he's like, I know. He steps aside, he's with me. And he's like, fetal position. Or I don't know. He's just like a corpse in this shopping cart.
So
it's
they bring him
image.
in, and he's just still in shock, but he doesn't remember what he saw.
No, and the dad and the father and the sister are looking at him and like, we can't get him into the hospital.
Yeah, there's no dad and a father, and this is
no
1985. Papa. Even in Canada, there ain't no two gay dads.
But the sister says he has amnesia,
which he I guess technically does. Basically, after this point, Michael just fucking sucks. He spoiler alert, he wakes up the next morning with no hair on his head, but then he walks around with his eyes shut all the time, and he's just like a whiny bitch.
Lucas said he has leukemia.
Yeah, so he's just like, he wakes up the next morning and somehow has, I mean, this is kind of a typical thing of, if somebody wakes up with too much hair or no hair, that somehow they get to a place where other people are, and they're like, but you don't have any hair. And he's like, what do you mean I don't have any hair? And it's like, he always uses the toaster on the table to
like
look
multiple
at
times.
As a mirror.
Several times they use the toaster as a mirror. Yes.
And Conrad's already at the house, by the way, at this point.
He's always at the house.
And Conrad says, or he's like, do I really not have any hair? And Conrad's like, no, you have some. Actually, no, you have no hair.
Not at all.
And
Conrad is a goofy dude.
Really eased him in there, Conrad.
Connie's a silly dude.
So obviously, to be fair, if I lost all my hair, especially as a kid, I would be very distraught. But Michael's just kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, like I said, he's kind of like he's a shell of himself.
They take him to the doctor, and the doctor is mostly dumbfounded. He, I think, gives kind of a lowdown about how
the German
works.
doctor, the Nazi doctor.
Yeah, I thought he sounded German, but later on we'll find out he really probably should have sounded French. He gives, I think, kind of an educational lesson on how hair works, and gives the theory that maybe Michael's just really stressed, and that's why he's lost all his hair, but it should come back. So he wants him to live a stress-free life, but Michael keeps having some flashback nightmares of him in the house, but he still isn't seeing or remembering what he saw. Meanwhile, the mean art teacher, the Senor, has been investigated by the principal, and it's revealed that he, I think, is both like an art forger, or at least that he has painted
he
famous
paints famous. Yeah, he must paint famous ones, sell them off as himself. He claims to be the great grandson of Rembrandt,
and also has been fired from a couple schools.
Yeah,
and then Conrad says he's fired again, but then he still seems to occupy his office or supply closet office in the school along with his dog until he doesn't.
He's hiding in there. Yeah, he's living in the closet.
And still at this point, I'm like, why do we care so much about this art teacher? Because watching Disney Channel original movies, there's usually at least like an efficiency in them of being like, things are in here for a reason and they'll usually pay off. But this, it's like, hey, this is a weird, fairly low budget Canadian movie from the 80s. All bets are off about any of this really mattering.
True.
But I had to stick with it no matter what.
Got it.
Classic 80s fashion, to show Michael's rage, he has a drum set in his basement that he's just like rocking out on.
While the sister's trying to play the piano upstairs peacefully, and you see her just get annoyed. I expect her to go down and say, Michael, cut that shit out, cut that racket out. She never does. Connie comes over and,
and Michael screams, get the fuck away from me. I'm disgusted. I'm bald. And I'm like, wow, this is very mean to bald people of the world.
He's not having it, I'll tell you that.
Susie and Dad surprise him with a wig, and at first he's like, no, don't put it on my fucking head.
He's quite the spaz.
But then they put it on, and he is overjoyed. He thinks it looks great. They use the adhesive to stick it to his head.
That's something I didn't know for whatever reason. I didn't know you glue wigs to your head. It makes sense. I just never
Jacob just thought it was all cartoons, where if there's a strong breeze, it just blows off your head. So then he is just back to living his normal life. Because, this whole time when he's been bald, he hasn't gone to school because he's both stressed, but also worried people will make fun of him. I think maybe some people do learn he's bald. I'm not sure. Or like the art teacher's like, he asked Conrad, he's like, what's going on with your friend Michael? And Michael's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I mean, like the math teacher at some point clearly knows. The math teacher.
Well, that's after.
Later.
That's after the peanut butter solution.
Yeah.
The titular peanut butter solution.
Yeah.
So he is at a soccer game where Michael's wearing his wig. He's loving life.
He's scoring goals. I think he has like 2.
At least 2 goals. There's
Probably had a
girls
hat
on the
trick.
sidelines cheering
People
for
are
him.
cheering him on. Everybody loves him. And then
There's a kid on the other team
who's getting pissed that Michael's so good.
and he seems not like huge,
He
but
looks
he's
bigger,
larger than the
yeah.
other kids. And Conrad like points him out. He's like, he's the bully kid. Watch out for him.
So he trips Michael. He just like kicks him in the leg, and Michael falls. Michael gets up. He's upset, and he tries to defend himself. And the guy just starts ripping at his hair. Like I don't think we're supposed to think that the guy knew he had a wig on.
The idea, not as somebody who's ever been in a fight, but that he would have been like grabbing at his hair, maybe to like punch him. But then he just pulls off his hair, and then
kids chase him.
Everything
Both
goes
teams.
wild.
He starts running down the street. People are chasing him. They have like a chant they're saying.
They somehow have a chant like pre-prepared that they all know to chant at him for being bald. That I think maybe incorporates his name as well.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
A lot of the music in this is very like atmospheric or just like spooky sounding.
Yeah, a lot of creepy music. I would agree with that.
So he's back to hating life. And I don't know if there's quite like a metaphor here, but Michael wants to call his mom, who I don't know if he's said it is in Australia because her dad died.
Yes.
So he calls like the operator to be like, what time is it in Australia? Oh, I guess I won't call my mom then. And once he gets off the phone, he then runs into ghosts.
Ghosts, literally, in his home.
And they are of
They're the 2 homeless people that we see.
Yeah, ghosts of the
flashback.
winos, as Conrad called them.
Yeah, and they're like ransacking his kitchen for food. And he's
Very sympathetic representation of homeless people. By the way.
Yeah.
It's a man and a woman. The man's like coughing and spitting in a handkerchief.
Yeah, he's literally spitting. And he's like, "Oh, you're gonna wake up my dad. He's gonna come and yell at you." And he's like, "Oh, well, you can't hear what you don't see." So Michael,
I didn't catch them like establishing rules.
Yes. So he says, Michael. He says, "Shut your eyes." So what we see Michael shut his eyes. And then we see like a cut back and forth between Michael with his eyes closed, and the ghosts are like slamming stuff, and you can't hear anything. It's like silent.
Oh.
So then as soon as he opens his eyes, and everything's smashing and banging around. So it's like, you're right. I can't hear what I don't see.
And I don't really know the why this occurs, but then the old lady gives him a recipe to help him grow his hair back.
Yeah, I don't
and
know.
it is extensive. I started taking the notes, but I eventually dropped off because there's too much.
5 dead flies.
So 1 ripe banana.
Okay, yeah.
And then she accentuates everything by saying like, where you put it? On my head. And then when he doesn't always say on my head, she's like, where fucking say on your head.
Well, and then she corrects his grammar because like she says like flies, so like for the banana, you put it on I put it on my head. For the dead flies, he says, I put it on my head. She's like, no, you don't put it, you put them because there's plural. Didn't you learn anything in class?
Yeah, so it's ripe banana, rotten egg, dead flies, licorice leaves, kitty litter, and somewhere in there apparently there's also peanut butter.
Yeah, Skippy, right? Was it Skippy the brand?
Yeah, that's a reveal where reading on IMDb trivia, apparently in Canada there was like a promotion with like Skippy related to this movie, and like Skippy paid for the product placement.
Wow.
I'd be mad if I was Skippy because the peanut butter is hardly in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
I feel like you see like a Skippy jar like askew in one scene,
Like,
and you don't even get like a front on view. I feel like there's a more clear product placement for fucking Pepsi Cola in this movie than Skippy peanut butter. Which, by the way, Skippy peanut butter sucks ass. I'm a fucking choosy motherfucker.
Wow.
I'm a choosy mom fucker, and I'm choosing Jif. Skippy
Shots.
is acceptable. It's not the worst peanut butter. That would be, at least in my opinion. Have you ever had Peter Pan peanut butter?
Yikes.
That stuff is bad. My mom got Peter Pan peanut butter. I remember one time as a kid, and it wasn't like just a normal jar. It was like some squat ass large jar that was like 2 jars put together.
Oh, no.
And I thought it tasted like a tire. It was horrible. And like, I didn't realize that Peter Pan was like kind of an actual established brand. I thought this was, like store-bought, like generic brand, whatever you get at Aldi's or something.
Fucking rip.
Hey man, I'm gonna pay the full price to get Jif.
The real deal. Is Jif with one F or two Fs?
What do you mean?
Jif. Wasn't that one of like the
No, it's not. You're not
Mandela effect.
No, you're not trying to fake some fucking Mandela effect.
I think Jif peanut butter was a Mandela effect.
That's just being dumb, and the fact that you even had asked that belies that you do not go to grocery stores very often.
People think that was a Mandela effect.
So he's gathering all of this stuff immediately that night. He puts it in a blender, but then his sister and dad hear it, and they're like, "Oh, what the fuck? Oh shit, what the hell is he doing?" But they like wait until he's about to use it, and they think he's going to drink it. So then they grab him again. They grab him all the time, and then he like freaks out like when they put the wig on him. So then the sister dumps it down the toilet, and he's like, "I wasn't gonna drink it. I was gonna put it on my head." And then it's not clear if like he just immediately gets more stuff, or if it's like a day happens or whatever.
Yeah.
But then he does get it, and I was checking the time at this point. I'm like, 40 minutes in, where's the goddamn peanut butter in the freaking peanut butter solution? So he gets this whole concoction, and we see him the next morning spreading it on his head. And then he's like, "Oh, it's not spreading well."
He like washes it off, and it's like gross.
No, that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
He's trying to put it on.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, "It's not, no, it must still be at night," because he washes it off in the morning. And it's like, "Oh, it's not spreading well. I'll just put a lot more peanut butter in it." And he's like, "Oh, hell yeah, that's the stuff. That's the peanut butter solution. I'm a better painter than my dad."
He says that.
And he looks like the baby in the baby video of the baby covering himself in peanut butter. Yes. And then the mom asks, "Does that feel good?" And he goes, "Oh."
I know that video. I said he looked like the Avatar.
Well, yeah, because he just has one stripe down his forehead. And I was like, wait, was peanut butter supposed to be in the recipe? Or is he just chosen to add peanut butter just randomly that would help it spread?
That's the solution.
Why is that in the bathroom with him? I don't know. But like, I had to like eat my words because I'm like, where's the peanut butter? Oh, it's happening right now. And
yeah.
That's all the peanut butter we get. And it's not even like indicated. It's like, wait, is what happens to him as the movie goes along the fault of the peanut butter by putting too much peanut butter and not following the recipe? Or if it just doesn't matter. I'm kind of angry that's being called the peanut butter solution.
Yeah, the title doesn't really fit the movie. Like you said, like the peanut butter is literally only in it for like, it's only one scene.
So I think I saw somewhere that this movie was originally called Michael's Fright.
That would have been better.
But then maybe they got like that Skippy money, and then they were like, all right, it's the peanut butter solution.
Peanut butter solution sounds more interesting.
I mean, we have the Shia LaBeouf movie, The Peanut Butter Falcon, which is not this movie. Don't get them confused. The next morning, he washes it off in the shower, and it's like caked on and gross.
It's really gross, really chunky. But there's no hair. He washes it off. There's no hair yet.
And then he goes down to the kitchen, and his sister's like,
"Michael, what's that on your head?"
You're like, your head look nasty.
I thought I washed it all off, sissy. Oh, no. And then she grabs a magnifying glass and puts it up to his head. "Michael, you have hair." And then she calls in like the dad. And by the time the dad comes in, his head is just covered with hair.
And then like, Conrad comes, and every single time there's a cut.
It's like an inch longer. Yeah. It just gets longer and longer until there's basically like a mop on his head.
And Jacob's like, how are they doing that?
That was good. Good sequenced.
Yeah, I forgot to mention in between his first batch and the second batch, he's forgotten the recipe, and then the ghosts visit him again, and the woman ghost is like, I'm not going to give you the recipe again. Sometimes I'll be nice, sometimes I'll be mean, but I'm going to be mean now. But then the guy just like takes the recipe out of her hand and leaves it, and then it's like physically in the real world then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was going to say we don't see the ghost again. We do, but really, none of this movie makes any fucking sense.
Who knows?
So, yes, before they go to school, Conrad asks him, hey, what's your secret? They go up to the bathroom, and he's showing him the jar and being like, this is what I got. And Conrad keeps trying to grab it. And eventually he does. And he's like, what do you need it for? You got beautiful hair, Conrad. And then he says, yeah, but I want some hair
down here, pointing to his nether regions, his groin area, his coccyx.
And we don't know exactly how old
And
these kids are.
They're probably like 10, maybe younger. So he says, get out of here. A guy's got to do what a guy's got to do. And he shuts the bathroom door, and we're supposed to believe. And he does, because we see what happens later about him applying this peanut butter solution to his.
And this is why it's a peanut butter problem. Ain't no solution.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're gonna mention it later, but there are points in the movie where we see Conrad, like there's like long hair.
Yeah, of course I'm gonna fucking talk about this.
Okay.
Jacob.
Okay.
No, I'm just gonna say he doesn't have giant pubes growing out of his fucking pant legs. Are you crazy?
Like, well, I mean the crosswalk, you know.
Yeah, Jacob's trying to call out one scene I missed because I was fucking writing notes for the goddamn movie he picked. And trying to be like, I missed something, when the next scene is him laying in bed scratching himself because he's got itchy fucking pubes running down his legs.
It's so bad.
And then the reason that they don't come up again too much is that Conrad just he yells at his hair.
Stop growing.
Stop. And
Stop it.
I guess that solves it because he doesn't have hair growing anymore.
Why doesn't Michael do that?
Because Michael fucking sucks.
He just mopey. He's so mopey.
So by the time Conrad and Michael get to school, Michael, his hair is like down to his shoulders, and kids are like, is that real, or is he just bald still? And then they look at his hair and they're like, ew, he has dandruff. And
it must be real.
Would it be a wig if he had dandruff?
It must be real.
I guess is the consolation I have is that, well, my hair is real, but I got dandruff.
That's true.
It's a struggle. Probably because I have so much dairy.
Oh.
Anyways, in math class, the kids are distracted by Michael's hair because it's growing and moving.
It's twitching around, and I don't know is Conrad clipping it at this point yet?
Not yet.
Not quite yet.
Because it's not quite that long yet.
He makes a comment, or somebody makes a comment, or he makes a comment, and the teacher's like, it's impossible that your hair continues to grow.
You idiot.
It can only grow a half an inch a month.
Don't lie to me, motherfucker.
No more, no less.
But by the time Michael comes home for dinner, he's looking like Cousin It from Addams Family.
Like, legitimately.
Where he's trying to eat soup, but oh no, his hair's in front of his face, and it's so impossible to part it and pull back.
It's bad.
Then, when they're in math class in the following day or whatever, Conrad is he's not cutting a huge amount of hair. I don't know if it's supposed to be like he's cutting little bits and then it's already like growing back in place. But like he's cutting it and putting it in a paper bag, but he could be cutting off a lot more.
Yeah. No, he's doing little, they need like a big shears. They need like big shears, like.
Yeah, they could have done some more fun stuff with the hair.
Or like a saw. Use like a saw or something. I don't know.
I don't think that would work very well.
Like, like the band saws. I don't know. They could, like I said, they could have done more fun stuff with how to remove it from his head.
So the teachers are annoyed by this. Some people who aren't worried at all is Susie and Dad. Susie and Dad are totally fine with him having giant hair.
Multiple teachers have complained that they will resign if he doesn't stay home or something, right?
Yeah, they get sent to the principal's office where we get the reveal that Conrad has giant pubic hair growing. It just looks like normal hair.
Yes.
But it's growing out of his pant leg.
It's a bit much.
So then basically Michael's kicked out of school where like the next day, like his hair's like a huge train behind him.
Literally. Is this when it's windy?
Yeah, it's just randomly the windiest day ever. And Dad's like, where are you going? You're not allowed back at school. They don't want you. And Michael's like, I just want to learn. And then he's walking around. His hair is getting blown into bushes and getting tangled up.
And he just like hides underneath like a deck.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm so sleepy. It goes underneath somebody's deck and porch, falls asleep, and then gets kidnapped by the senor.
The senor comes up. This is when we start to get like the news clippings, right? Of like kids missing or no?
Yeah, immediately it cuts to 3 sets of news clips. 2 of them are in French, so we can't read them.
Michael was abducted. First it says Michael abducted, and then it says 10 kids gone missing.
Yeah, a lot happens. So
we later hear that 20 have gone missing,
including Conrad's sister.
Yeah, Mylin.
We see the dad like breaking all of his art supplies because he's so distraught over Michael being kidnapped.
He's been drawing pictures of Michael just bald in different like weird colors and stuff.
I think somewhere in the kidnapping, we also see that the senor has a giant shirt made out of hair.
It's creepy.
But it's like
like a
curlier
coat.
hair, so it's like, is that Michael's hair or is this just different hair that he has?
I think we're
it
meant
kind
to
of has
believe
to be
it's
Michael's hair.
It's a lot.
His dog also has a hair shirt later on in only like one scene of the movie, but
it's pretty creepy.
The dogs, that's funny. His hair shirt, that's creepy.
It's fucking, it was all weird.
Then Conrad is kind of the main character of the movie in this segment because Michael is AWOL, and since the dad broke all of his art supplies, they're going to purchase new stuff for him. So they go to the local art supply store where they're looking at brushes, and the shopkeeper's like, "Oh, see here, we got a new brush. This brush got big ass hair on it.
It looks like absolute shit. Like you could not paint with this. It's just like long and wispy.
It looks like would only be useful to Bowser Jr. when he Shadow Mario in Super Mario Sunshine to draw big graffiti on the wall.
It's not good.
But they get this big brush and it's like, oh shit, that's $20. I guess that's probably a good brush to give your dad. And then Susie's feeling the hair on it.
I know this hair. It's Michael's hair.
Which is, and we had already kind of guessed because we were looking, back at the title cards. Are they somehow going to be using, well, we saw that it's like, I kind of was like, the dad's an artist. He'll just make the paintbrushes. But no, it's a lot crazier.
This is kind of where it really gets kind of unhinged. The movie like really gets
Ghost telling him to use peanut butter shit to grow long hair wasn't enough.
No, it gets much worse.
So then they talk to the shopkeeper. He's like, oh yeah, they're called magical brushes, and I get them from a guy. Oh, but I don't know his name. He just goes by the Senor, and then they both go.
He only tells
the Senor
because they know him. They know him as the teacher.
Oh, and he gives me a delivery every Saturday. Wait, that's tomorrow.
And he's like, and the guy's like, and it goes all day long.
Yeah, it's funny.
He's having fun with it.
So then we see them staking out the store by just sitting there reading like comic books or something and watching the time pass by, waiting for a red truck to pull up. So then they see the red truck and Conrad hides, but the sister doesn't. The Senor tries to kidnap the sister.
Yeah, so Conrad goes into the van with sugar and a funnel.
We had a lot of like moments where it's like, what's all this stuff he has? And we're like, they're gonna siphon the gas out of the vehicle.
Yeah, that's what it'll look like.
No, he's going into the vehicle. And we're like, is like Canadian trucks weird where they're like, they have a gas tank inside of the vehicle? He's gonna wait till they get to where they are, and then he's going to put sugar in the gas tank so it can't start. None of this happens. The plan is that Conrad is in the back of the truck. He pours sugar through a tube to leave a trail in like the industrial district.
So she can follow them on her bike.
Yes. And as the most culturally relevant part of this movie is during this kind of chase, kind of tailing sequence, is there is a song by Celine Dion.
Her first English-speaking song.
Yeah, so I guess she would have been French-Canadian. The producer, director of this movie happened upon some of her music and asked, hey, I'm making a fucking movie called The Peanut Butter Solution.
And she said, of course, I'm going to write Michael's song.
This is not Michael's song. I think this song is maybe called Magic Man, and it's fine, but
don't be
the song is better than the movie, I guess.
Wow.
But Susie loses the sugar trail because there's a street cleaner that wipes away the sugar trail at some point.
Unfortunate.
So then Conrad gets caught by the Senor because the Senor is like, why is there a bunch of fucking sugar here? And he opens the thing, and then Conrad's like, I'm an investigator. What are you investigating?
Kidnapping. So he locks him in there with him, obviously, and this is when shit's like,
yeah, so then I was kind of putting the pieces together. I'm like, why is he kidnapping all these children? Because it was like, wait, is he somehow responsible? I was like, did he burn the house down? That doesn't seem to be the case. Is he somehow, he knew about the peanut butter solution causing long hair to grow? No, it's just Michael's growing a lot of hair. It's not like the other kids are growing a lot of hair. So then I was like, wait, does he have like a sweatshop of children making these brushes?
That's exactly
and that is the case.
What it is.
We also learned that he is, I guess, making Michael grow hair quicker by feeding him a supply of just yogurt. So maybe it's the yogurt solution.
So like Michael's laying in like I don't know, almost like a sarcophagus kind of. He's like, I don't know, he's like laying in like an enclosed thing that has his hair feeding down through like, I don't like feeding down through like a chute where it's like being fed to the kids and they can like cut it and then they're assembling the brushes.
They don't necessarily seem to be having a horrible time either.
No, they're
in some parts later on, I'm like, wait, do they like the Senor? I'm very confused. A lot of the rest of this movie is kind of just like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
There's dreams and ghosts and stuff like that. So there is kind of like a dreamlike quality to a lot of this movie. I know a term that gets thrown around a lot, willy-nilly, is Lynchian. I don't know if it's necessarily say this, but this movie's weird. It's got a vibe, as I was talking about earlier. The music is very atmospheric, and weird shit happens. Like,
a lot of weird shit.
Let me lay out the sequence of events. Kid sees something in a burnt-out house that scares him so much, he loses all his hair. Ghosts that were of people who died in the house give him a solution that may or may not actually contain peanut butter. I don't know. That he then adds peanut butter to, he paints on. He grows such long hair that he gets kidnapped by his evil art teacher to make paintbrushes out of his hair, but he doesn't do it. It's a bunch of other kidnapped children that does it. And I'm still telling you to not watch this movie. It's not worth your time.
It's I would say watch the highlights if you can find.
Because at this point, we're reaching kind of all of the answers. Jacob is sleeping as we're watching the movie.
It was for like 5 seconds. I had closed my eyes. I did not miss any of this.
He's on his phone right now. Jacob picked this fucking movie, and he can't even give it undivided attention.
Oh.
Yeah. And also, the paintbrushes are magical, and the Senor can paint pictures that you can enter in Super Mario 64 style and go into the places. And he always paints his dog in each of them, and it's kind of cute. I'm not really clear on the mechanics of the magical portals, because it's like, oh, well, they aren't real places, so you always got to come back. But then later on, they paint a real place, and I don't know. It's not like a teleportation or anything.
Yeah, the painting aspect was like, I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. Like I said, this is 85. So,
it is pre-Super Mario 64. So.
Yeah, like those visuals, and like when the Senor is painting, he's really doing really goofy dances.
Well, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We got Conrad locked up. Susie lost the sugar trail. Well, she finds the sugar trail again later on. Don't worry about it. But how are we going to figure out who the Senor is? Well, remember the doctor who visited Michael, or they visited
brother.
Earlier? In classic, like, oh, we can't introduce new characters. Everybody has to be connected. The doctor is the brother of the dad's art agent, art gallery. That guy who shows up in one other scene, he is called the Rabbit. He also has a French accent. The doctor, though, sounds more German than French. And the Rabbit is the twin brother of the Senor. Nothing about him seems rabbit-like either. I thought this was going to be like an Alice in Wonderland situation where there's like
I don't. Why is that name wasn't warranted?
No.
What if he came hopping out of the? Oh, did we mention the dog was like alive in the paintings too? This guy really loves his dog.
I just saw the dog was in the paintings. I don't know if he was like moving.
Oh, okay, maybe it was.
But they were like all sparkly paintings.
Oh,
to
yeah,
show that they were magical.
Movement. Yeah, magic. Yeah.
I don't really necessarily know. Like, Susie already found where he was, so I don't know why we needed the cross where we also needed the brothers to help them find it. Whatever.
That's a good point.
A lot of like the final moments of this movie are kind of a blur. And Jacob is maybe being like, "Did this really happen? Because I was half awake." And you're going to tell me
it's a dream sequence,
especially this sequence where all the kids are asleep in the sweatshop. Conrad's getting up, and some kid I don't know if we've even talked to before is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm going to go see Michael." "You can't." "Why?" "There's invisible tripwires everywhere." I'm like, did an actual child write this movie? What is
Tom
this?
Cruise shows up to save the day.
Yeah, you can't because of the invisible tripwires. I think I'll be fine. I'm going to go anyway. Okay, well then use my invisible string detector. Was it an issue if you have an invisible string detector? So he's using this thing, which it's an okay effect that it seems to not be touching anything. And he's using that to show where he needs to step over the invisible tripwires that we then see are attached to a ring on the Senor's finger as he sleeps on a giant bed in the center of the sweatshop. And all the kids are suspended in the air in hammocks, and that's where they're sleeping, except for Michael, who's in his like casket. So then he goes and talks to Michael, and Michael's like, "Oh, what is that you, Conrad? Where's my
This
yogurt?"
whole movie, Michael's awful.
And my notes say, "Jacob's sleeping, like Michael's sleeping."
I
But
was
then
channeling my inner Michael.
But then Conrad gets caught by the Signor, and there's a very unexciting like chase sequence in the shop that at one point we do get to see that he makes like giant darts out of brushes to throw at a picture of the principal on the wall, which is kind of funny. But then like the Signor grabs Conrad's sister, and then Conrad gets put in a net that's getting spun around in the air, and he's getting sick. But then Conrad's like, "Senor, I wish you were my dad. My dad died in a plane crash. I love you so much. Can I be your son?"
And then some kid asks him, like, "Did your dad really die?" He's like, "No, shut up."
So that's funny. But then Senor's like, "Oh, yes, I only have dog. I wish I had children. You are all my children. I am your father." And then he's like, "Dad, I want you to paint a picture of Michael's fright." What? Yeah, I can do that with this magic paintbrush.
Which would have been, like you said, the name of the movie. Yeah.
So then I thought it was like, oh, is this like the ghosts are going to show that like he burnt down the house and they're going to like attack him? No, not really. So then as he's painting it, he's doing this whole like physical comedy routine.
This is great.
He's not looking at his painting and he's like dancing.
He's
and
like
the kids
dapping the walls, and the painting behind him is like slowly.
And the kids seem to be having a great time.
They're laughing.
And I'm like, wait, do they like him? And then he finishes, and later on in the movie, one kid's like, well, he was kind of nice when he was our dad. I don't know. Maybe the Signor is okay. The painting is a representation of the burnt out house. And then Conrad uses like further trickery to be like, oh, I'm going to go see what scared Michael. And then the Signor's like, no,
let me do it, son.
I'm your father. I'm worried about you. I'll go in. So then he does. He walks up the chute into the window like Michael did. And then he gets scared and he slides down or whatever. And then, oh man, what does happen? Conrad saves Michael, but Michael wants to go into the painting too because he doesn't remember what he saw. So then he's going into the house. And it's actually fairly creepy. Like this is kind of... don't look under the bed, kind of like if I was a kid watching this. Yeah. This is generally kind of creepy. Where then he runs into the homeless people again, but like their voices are all weird and spookier, I guess. But he's like, oh, I'm not scared of you anymore. You're just homeless people. But aren't homeless people the scariest thing of all?
Shots fired.
But I guess the Signor was scared of them enough. So he's no longer scared. I don't know if that means his hair will stop growing. I don't know why that would mean his hair stops growing because it's not connected. He lost his hair. I thought that was going to be the solution, is that he gets so scared he loses all his hair again, and being bald is better than having nonstop growing hair.
You're making too much sense with your conclusions.
So then my next note is just nonsensical ending. At some point they get out of the painting. The Signor, who now looks like Walter White because he's bald,
he
but still has
very Walter White
his beard for whatever reason.
Yes.
He starts rounding up all of the kids and like locking them and catching them in nets and tying them up and laughing and all this stuff. But Conrad's sister steals his keys to unlock the door that they were locked in by.
Yes.
So then they're running out, but then it's like, oh shit, this other door is locked and we can't leave. But then the dad, the doctor, the rabbit, and the police and the sister all show up.
They've all showed up.
And then they're like, you've been a bad Signor. And he's like, I know I have, but can I have my dog in prison? And I don't know if he does. So then they go home, and right as they're going into the house, Michael's hair is shorter, but it's still pretty long. Before they go into the house, the dad says, I'm pretty sure, there's a surprise in the fridge.
Oh.
But before they go into the house, then they see that the mom has come home. We never see what the surprise in the fridge was.
The only time, and we also see the mother. She gets out of a taxi.
We see her in a picture earlier.
Oh, giving the piggyback ride, yes.
But then she's like, Michael, what happened to your hair? And then they go inside and they're laughing. And my question is, does this hair just grow forever?
That's like you said, it wasn't a peanut butter solution. It was a problem.
I mean, obviously,
we never got a solution. We never got a...
All of our hair grows forever, but...
Yeah. Not at like
there's a problem
minute.
that wasn't necessarily addressed here.
They're going to have to hire somebody that's just constantly cutting his hair.
So
Forever.
that was the peanut butter solution.
Yeah.
Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Could Michael's hair have stopped 9/11?
In the hands of Michael, no. In the hands of like Rapunzel and Tangled, who does stuff with their long hair, yes. But Michael is just being like, oh man, fucking terrorists took over my plane. I just missed my mom. Oh, my hair's so long.
So if Michael's character would have been played by a better actor, would you say the movie would have been a little bit better?
Maybe, but he still would have been doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Where Michael mostly doesn't do anything
around.
in this movie.
The movie is carried by Conrad.
It's hobbled along. It's dragged along by Conrad. I don't think anybody's carrying this movie.
Outside of probably the Senor.
The plot points are carrying this movie. So that's why we say, just watch the trailer. Jacob sent me this trailer. Coincidentally, speaking of Jacob half sleeping during this movie, I got this. I mean, I go to bed kind of early, so maybe it was only like 9 o'clock, but I was in bed and I was just like, what the fuck is this? And then Jacob sent me this. And the trailer...
It's fun, right?
It's
the
like...
trailer's good, really good.
Michael. He lost his hair. Ghost. The peanut butter. They probably say the peanut butter solution more in the trailer than peanut butter is ever referenced in the actual movie.
That's true.
But it's just like, oh, he lost his hair. Whoa, he's growing a lot of hair because of peanut butter? Oh, there was ghosts? So it just like kept going and going and going. And then I'm like, okay, shit, yeah, let's watch this. But then that's the thing with so many bad movies. It's like, better to watch a clip show or something of them than to actually sit through and watch them. Or you listen to a podcast that will ideally be at least 30 or so minutes shorter than the actual movie. And maybe we've made it funny for you.
We had, I don't know. The movie had fun parts, but...
It's another one where maybe if I didn't need to take notes and try to like make sense of what was happening. Because there was fun moments of just being like, the invisible string detector? What? Or the random bully soccer player.
Yeah, I was just saying, ripping off the hair and like they literally chased him down the street singing songs, mocking him.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of just goofy stuff.
So I don't necessarily think I'll track down Tales for All 1 and 3 to be a completionist here.
Yeah.
By the way, there's another Celine Dion song as the
Michael's
outro
song. Yeah, Michael's song. It gets its own.
Maybe you've heard of him. He's in the Peanut Butter Solution.
He's the main character.
Kind of.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know who has the second most screen time next to him. Senor?
His hair. No, probably Conrad. Conrad's in a lot of scenes with him.
That's true.
Possibly at times Conrad is maybe in more scenes than him because he shows up so often. Yeah, there'll be like a little bit where like Michael's playing the drums by himself, but then Conrad shows up in that scene. And we get a lot of Conrad by himself or Conrad and Susie. So very odd balance there. So
That's true.
That was the peanut butter
solution. We
If
did that for you. Shout out Tom.
Yeah, shout out Tom. He didn't even need to write into the podcast email account.
He just got it.
So since nobody took us up on that offer, that's why we arrived at this movie. And the movie I have planned for next time.
Oh, boy.
Which for studious listeners, I have talked about doing on the show before. And maybe it will end up being a punishment as well. I don't know. But I think it'll be a fun time.
You're not gonna do a tease?
Nah.
Okay.
Well, as I said, I've referenced it before. Jacob should know. I've been at least multiple times been like, I think we need to watch these movies because there's at least 2 of them. So that email address is a whole.
What I immediately thought of was Airbud.
No. We'd only watch Airbud 1 maybe. All the sequel movies I'm pretty sure are horrible, at least based on Airbud Spikes Back, which is quite bad. But that email address is a whole new pod at gmail.com. Something that will maybe tie up at least 2 of our months then in the near future or somewhat distant future is that they've set up now. Again, these aren't going to be movies that we're obligated to watch because I don't think they're technically Disney Channel original movies. And even if they like somehow weasel their way in, we're not going to necessarily treat them as that. So they have given a date to that Big City Greens, whatever the fuck. That's like some cartoon.
Yeah.
We're not going to watch that. But August 9th, 2024 is the date for Descendants, The Rise of Red.
Oh.
Which is a spin-off movie about like the Queen of Hearts' daughter. So I think we'll be obligated to probably have to cover that movie. As well, no date set, but an announcement and a title for a little movie called Zombies 4.
Oh, man.
You want to know? You want to know what the subtitle is for Zombies 4? What monster haven't they covered that we maybe talked about them even covering?
So they did Aliens.
The obvious one. We did Aliens.
Aliens, zombies, werewolves.
So zombies.
Mummies?
Come on, they can't carry a movie on mummies now. Zombies 4, Dawn of the Vampires. So that one probably a little ways out because I'm sure Milo Manheim. Everybody wants a piece of fucking Milo Manheim. But I will be there. It might not be a good movie, but it'll be something. Especially with how much money they put into Zombies 3. I'm interested in Zombies 4 might be. So that's at least 2 episodes that will bring us back to kind of our old stomping grounds.
You can work with that.
But until then, unfortunately, I went to the store again for a whole new pop. And I saw the 12 packs of the new Mountain Dew Baja Blast flavors again, but I couldn't find any bottles. I even went to a gosh darn gas station. I went inside of a gas station when I was getting gas. Didn't have the bottles yet. So we'll be on the lookout for those. I was like, if I can get both, I'll buy a bottle of each. We'll have a double header, a whole new pop segment. But we got nothing to show for it right now. But it's still April. I'm sure those are kind of supposed to be summer slated flavors. So we'll get them. We'll track them down in the near future. Otherwise, I don't know if we really got anything else to plug or discuss. Find us on your podcast platform of choice, which there's fewer of. There's Apple, maybe you've heard of it. Spotify, not Google anymore. There's
sad.
I don't know, whatever the fuck you Android users use that if it's not the Google one, which I always heard was bad anyways. As well as youtube.com/ahwholenewpod, where you can like, comment, and subscribe to our videos on there. I failed to plug in the last episode our Twitter account, AWNPod, run by Dustin. I was too excited to make the Dan Schneider joke that I failed to plug the Twitter account. So appreciate Dustin, even with his fatherly duties, was still able to manage to get out a tweet for us for our previous episode. And speaking of Dan Schneider, I had that all plugged and ready to go for the last episode's outro, and now I don't know if I have anything for this one. All right, I'll tell you what the next movie we're gonna watch is. All right, you ready?
Maybe.
It's
Does it feel good?